get it. It's fine.
No, I would never ignore you. So yeah, I guess me and Phoenix, we were playing, or I guess for our game that we've been playing the last week, we I'd say maybe a month ago we started playing the game Nobody Saves the World, and
Longer than that because we
was it
started
really?
playing. Well, because Tiny Tina's kind of came out in between. That took at least my attention for probably a month on its own. And we started playing this like, I don't know, a month before that. So this was probably a good 2 or 3 months ago we first started playing it. And finally got back to it.
Yeah, and then we came back, or I was kind of pressing you because I know you. I knew you had wanted to come back to it anyways, so I just kind of wanted to knock it off of our backlog.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you did. I honestly just kind of forgotten about it when you brought it back up, but I'm glad we came back to it. It was a fun game.
I think more of it is that like I was really egging myself to like start a new game, and like I just like I don't want to like leave too many like doors open. It's like at least close a couple. I did that with the Gunk and now this game, so I don't know. I feel like I'm pretty good now to move on to something else.
Fair.
But yeah, so we came back to this game. We finished it through and through. We didn't. I feel like we left a few quests on the table. We unlocked all the characters at least, though. We didn't max out everything. I mean, was that something you wanted to go back and do? I feel like I had my fill.
Necessarily. Usually with a game like this, especially one that has like a lot of like side quests and whatnot, if I don't do them before I do the final mission, I usually never come back and do it. And I knew we were trying to finish this up late last night, so we were just kind of speed running through the last couple of seconds of it. But no, now that I've beaten the game, I don't have a whole lot of interest to go back necessarily, wrap up all the side quests or whatnot. I'll probably move on to something else.
No, I agree.
Not that they weren't fun. That's how I usually treat most of these type of games.
Yeah, it was fun. I don't think there's any meat left on that bone. Like there were some side quests. That was just about it. I mean, so I guess I'll get into some of my super basic thoughts. I mean, I really enjoyed the gameplay. I felt like my favorite part probably is how they really found a way to make. They have all these different characters that throughout the game you slowly unlock, and you kind of gain graded tiers or graded milestones by performing certain acts with certain characters. And I really liked how they able to mix that in, where like you could use different abilities on each type of character on other characters. I felt like that really made it super fun. What about you? Did you like that aspect?
Yeah, and honestly, I think when we either realized that or when the game kind of opened up to that, it really kind of changed my feeling on the game. Like, initially, the game, at least for me, started out pretty slow. 'Cause, I mean, that's, a lot of games, but it didn't have a lot of abilities. And some of the abilities end up being like basically how you traverse the world. So you're kind of locked out of going certain areas until you get certain abilities and characters. So it's really limited up front. Your powers weren't that great. But then there's a point, I'd say maybe like a quarter of the way through the game, a third of the way, when it starts, you rank up your characters high enough that they get extra slots, and you can start, combining abilities from other classes. So basically like multi-classing. And it really opened up, you can then have like your own special build for each character. Like if you and me had the same, like what we both played is like the rat several times, both our rats were different because we built them a little bit differently and had different kind of perks and passives and stuff like that. So it's a lot deeper than I think at first glance. It's certainly not the most in-depth type of RPG system, but there's a fair amount of customization. If you take your time, you can definitely come with some cool, interesting builds to tackle some of the dungeons in some unique ways.
Like,
so that was fun.
A moment that kind of sticks out to me, kind of speaking about that, is that towards the latter end of the game, we reached a level where each single time you got hit, because it was kind of like a multiplier, I don't know. They had some sort of effect where in this specific dungeon, each time you got hit, it was a one-hit kill. So you had to be like super careful. And what was super cool is there's this one character in the game you can play as, known as the egg, or it's just an egg, and it gives you the ability to withstand, 6 hits? And it was really cool going through that dungeon and kind of seeing you have that ability, that passive ability set, and me not have it set. And you were able to withstand all this stuff, and I'm like, well, I should probably put that on,
Yeah, I think that was one of the first times that I really started thinking about how some of the abilities would affect the dungeons, because I think we never, up to that point, was a later in the game.
We didn't do a lot of that stuff, no.
Well, we didn't have a lot of difficulty. Like, there were a couple of maybe pseudo challenging moments, but I think there were very few times where we were just like, man, we can't get through this, or this is like, brutal to try to fight through. Like for the most part, we progressed pretty smoothly to it. And around that point in the game too, we were starting to, I think, feel a little overpowered. At least I was. The characters I was starting to end up with, I was starting to like just fly through. And it wasn't until those last two like optional higher level dungeons that we were having issues with, and that was with our kind of OP'd out characters and whatnot. We had to start applying some strategy. So yeah, put that egg passive on so we take more hits. There was the one that we wanted to bypass, how it slows you down.
Oh,
you can make your
the speed one.
Faster, dampen how much poison you took. So there was a level of strategy there. I wish that would have came into play earlier, because that was honestly, I think, the most satisfying part of the game, was when we were able to be like, oh, it's kind of like a puzzle, right? You figure out which passive and which skill to piece together to get through that dungeon. I don't feel like we really got a chance to really engage with that kind of strategy early on, or even in the mid game. It wasn't until at the very end that we're like, oh, that's kind of cool.
Was it only 2-player, or could we have gotten more people in on it?
I think it was 2-player max.
Okay.
But I guess where I was going with this, I think co-op really changed our experience. I bet if we would have done this single player, the strategy probably would end up being more necessary as a single player. I think just having the extra person that you could kind of add the extra damage with, and of course, like one thing you can kind of exploit with this game is if one character dies, then you just have to make sure the other one stays alive long enough for a relatively short cooldown. It was like 7 seconds or something like that. Then the other character would just respawn with full health, full mana. Basically, they were just good to go. So if you kind of exploited that situation, you could get through tough scenarios without really applying a lot of strategy, just staying alive and kind of trading lives throughout it. So if we didn't have that option, I think we would have had to employ more strategic use of passives and stuff like that. So we lost that to a certain extent, which I'm a little sad about.
I'd be curious to see how I would be curious to see how the scaling differs in first player or in single player. I don't know. That would be kind of interesting.
I feel like this game is just going to be a very different experience, solo versus co-op. Partially for the reasons I said, but even like the way we unlocked characters, like we pretty much, when we got to the end of the game, had just done enough to unlock the final character. But that was with both of us. Like the way the game kind of works, for those who hadn't watched the live stream, there's a tree of characters where when you unlock one, it branches off to the next one. So you have to like get these different tiers that all kind of connect together in this tree to build up to the next character. But there's kind of two sides to this tree, and basically you took one side and started leveling up those characters, I took the other side leveling up those, so we split our efforts to eventually finish off the whole tree. If I had had to do that all solo, I don't know if I could have gotten all characters, at least not nearly as efficiently as we did. So
I feel like you got the better side, because I feel like your characters were a little bit more interesting. Like I feel like up until I got the Necromancer, did I not find a character that I like actually really liked? And that took a long time. He was like one of the second to last levels.
Well, a lot of mine were crappy too. I just stuck with them because I was trying to level. Like I hated the horse. The magician was kind of meh. I never used the guard. I don't know. I think for the most part they were pretty.
Oh, I forgot the bodybuilder. I actually really liked the bodybuilder. Yeah. I
mean, not that it really matters. The sides, and like you have to choose a side. It's kind of how we went about with unlocking our characters. But there was definitely some fun characters. I didn't get a chance to play with a lot of them though, because as I said, I was focusing on my side of the tree. So if this would have been a solo experience, I'm just curious, would I have spent less time with each character and maybe change my play style a little bit? So there's room, I think, to have a different experience with this game if you're wanting to play with other characters or spend more time with them than what we had. But
now that I think about it, some of the stuff I don't think you could do in single player, like that archery part where you have to hit the targets. I don't think you could do that in first single unless there's less targets.
It has to scale down. Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine it doesn't. Which I just can't speak to exactly how the scaling works on it.
Unless in single player they would expect you to find some combo of passives that allow you to like shoot spread arrows or shoot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, hard to say. I mean, and honestly, if that is the case, I kind of like that. I like that puzzle solving element. But I don't know. It's hard to speak to it because the scaling we got was all focused on co-op. But what we played, I mean, felt good. I never felt like it was unfair. I just wish we could have gotten some of that strategy-related gameplay kind of implemented a little bit earlier, but we definitely kind of just plowed through the mid-game without a whole lot of hassle.
I would say the beginning of the game is is a bit slow, but it's intentional because you only have access to like one character. Like definitely once you begin to like get in the flow of like unlocking all these characters and you start unlocking all of their different abilities, it definitely picks up. But I wouldn't say that even lasts for very long. Like I feel like you unlock the second character within like 20 to 30 minutes. So
Yeah, it's definitely getting me got to get past that initial hurdle with. Like, it probably takes a good 2 hours, I think, to be like, okay, I see where
because
this
I
is
would say
going.
that
Starting
first
to
hour
feel.
we were a bit just kind of meh on it, right?
Hmm. I think you were more mad than I was. I think I was trying to be a little more optimistic about it. I think because I knew I'd read a review or something that kind of mentioned the multi-classing, so I knew that was coming.
Mm-hmm.
If I didn't know that, I may have, had a different initial kind of feeling on it. But with that information in mind, it kind of pulled me through a little bit longer. But yeah, if you're considering this game, if you're watching the gameplay footage and it looks interesting to you, give it a chance. Give it a couple of hours. If you can get past the initial like 2 hours or so, you'll have a pretty good feel if this game's for you or not.
I
I will say
okay.
the ending I thought was a little anticlimactic. I don't know if it was
It
just that we
definitely
were kind of
was.
rushing through it, but based upon maybe it was because based upon the difficulty of some of the little side dungeons we had just had, we got to that final dungeon. It was just like, oh, okay,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know.
Well, that end plot line ends up being that more than the final boss battle. I found anticlimactic, where it was like, "Oh, you're the Nostramagus," and it just kind of ended up being what you would kind of expected it to be.
Yeah, I was a little half and half on the narrative side of it. Like, it's fun. It definitely has some humorous points to it. It's definitely not the most in depth of narratives out there. And I think your mileage is going to vary on the plot reveals and stuff like that are inside of it. But it's handled well. I liked the what Randy the Rad magician character. He
Mm-hmm.
was fun to see pop every once in a while. And kind of
Almost
he played
every
into the final
NPC was
story.
like super funny.
Yeah. So no, its game has good art style. The gameplay is simple, but it's fun. And it's a nice kind of casual game for the most part. So
Oh
it
yeah.
doesn't ever get overly difficult. If you've got a buddy, I'm going to recommend definitely do it co-op. As I said, there is a different solo experience in here that I'm sure you'd have fun with, but it's to me, I think it's more enjoyable as a co-op experience. The
Mm.
format of it just kind of fits that really well too.
And it was kind of I don't know, the two experiences really fit well together. I mean, going from Tiny Tina to this game, like I feel like there's like a good mesh. Like both of them are kind of humorous, kind of crazy, multiplayer experiences. Not multiplayer, but like more fun in co-op. I think. I don't know. I feel like they just kind of it was a good combo going from one game into the other.
Sure, yeah, I can see that.
I guess I would just say my favorite part about this game, other than the kind of many combinations of like using different characters and mixing up their abilities and using each character to unlock different things in the open world. I would say my favorite part about this game might very well be the open world. It just there's so many different like there's such a like a wide variety of different areas and each each um each dungeon is kind of housed in like a super interesting theme or super weird theme. It's just kind of cool, kind of going from each place. And like there was a part where you go inside of a whale, and you're like inside this whale, and there's like a science one you kind of go into. I mean, I don't know. I really enjoyed that part.
Yeah, and I mean, but it's a weird thing because like you're right, like the aesthetic changes a lot, which is nice, but at the same time, it doesn't usually like change the gameplay
No, no, no,
or
no.
kind of the flow of things very much. It's more just like kind of like a palette change. Like it looks different, but you even usually have a lot of the same enemies or enemy types. Every once in a while, they'll have like a new like variation of an enemy pop up at certain locations in the overworld. But I guess I enjoyed that. That felt it looked different. It rarely felt different to me though,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense. I mean, some of the dungeons yes had like a modifier on them, which made them a little more unique. But every time I went to a dungeon, I'm like, all right, we're just running through. We're getting these many keys. We're killing so many enemies, and we're moving on. And just started to feel a little kind of systematic after a certain point. But I like that in a game like this. Honestly, I kind of turn my brain off and just plow through the objective and get to the end and check off a box and move on. So for
Yeah.
me, I like kind of the simplicity of it.
I guess I would just say, like, I think you mentioned it already, but part of the fun more, I think part of the fun more of the actual, like, environments and themes is like, how you access it. Because it is kind of, like, neat, how, like, oh, in order to get into this one area, you have to be super tiny and small, become a rat. Or to get into this other area, you have to be able to withstand poison damage, so become become a zombie or something and put on some like dampening passive ability or.
Yeah, it's a little Metroidvania-ish.
Mm-hmm.
Not extremely so. And it is very easy to like clean up afterwards, which is kind of nice. Like towards the end, like the map shows you where all the quests are, and it's really easy to kind of tell what you missed. So you can just pop around and quickly, clean up things that you overlooked prior by changing your forms and stuff like that. So that's nice.
All right. Anything else? I guess. I mean, that's pretty much all the. That's pretty much all to the game. I mean, the combat I wouldn't say is super in depth. I mean, once you kind of get down your passives and finding what you like and upgrading each thing, I mean, it gets easier. Like, that's pretty much all there is to it. I mean, anything else you wanted to kind of say for it?
No, I'll leave it at that. I enjoyed it. I definitely think if what you're looking at the gameplay wise about looks interesting to you, give it a shot. Play it with a friend if at all possible. You're not going to be blown away by any one thing, but it's just a fun co-op experience. That you can just kind of, it's great if you can just kind of turn your mind off a little bit, chat with your buddy, have some fun at the jokes, and just, plow through it.
Well, what score would you give it out of 100 bajillion? Would you give it a...
7 quadruple gillions. I don't know.
It's too much water.
Too much water?
All right.
Oh.
I don't know.
I caught your reference. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So, yeah, that's kind of that. I mean, once again, I would just say definitely recommend it. Like, second everything Phoenix said. If you got a buddy, if you got a friend, it's definitely worth a playthrough. And how much time did we put in? What did our timer at the end say? It said like 15? 15, yeah, it's not bad.
We did a lot. You could do it much quicker.
Yeah.
It could be a 10-hour game.
We did most of the side quests and like other like things optional.
We did all the dungeons, which we didn't need to do. We did most of the side quests.
Collected all the mana, fairies.
As many as we could find. Yeah, so weren't completionists, but we probably did 85 to 90% of what was there in one playthrough. So 15 hours was, I think, fair.
And if we didn't mention it, this is on Game Pass, so there's an.
I know it just released on other platforms too. So it is on Game Pass for free, but I think they released it. I want to say it's on pretty much everything now. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure.
I know it's on PC. Yeah, I know it's on PC.
Yeah, so wherever you're at, give it a shot. I'm sorry, give it a shot, and
you're good. I don't know what we're gonna do for the next podcast for what we're playing. I don't have anything on the dock, and I'm gonna be gone for a bit, so.
We'll find a new segment, Chaz.
Maybe I should take a random Switch game on the vacation with me and try and play something really short. Try and knock out a single game. I don't know. Maybe that would be fun.